Hi everyone and welcome to another art lesson. I was really impressed with everyone who submitted their work last week, so thank you for doing that. I think drawing an eye is something that is really difficult and these all look really good. Because again, I can see that everyone's clearly following the instructions, so I think a lot of you are realising that drawing parts of the face not only requires you to get the shapes right, but also to understand how does it look in 3D and how do you apply tone to it as well. So these are looking great so far. Please continue to give it 100% and I look forward to seeing how everyone does on the next task. And also thanks to everyone who sent in extra artwork, that was really fun to see as well. So at this point we know how to draw a Loomis head and we also know how to draw an eye. Now I'm sure you've guessed it at this point, but we've still got a few things to go through before we can do the whole portrait. So today what we're going to be doing is learning how to draw the lips. Now just like the eye, there are a few key shapes you have to get right with the lips. So don't get disheartened with your drawing if it doesn't look right at first. I would say with the lips, it doesn't really start to look right until the end of your drawing, because a lot of it has to do with the shadows and the highlights on our lips. And just remember to follow the instructions. So you might have already learned how to draw the lips before, but I'd like you to try out this new method. Because we don't want to just know how to draw the lips from straight on. If we draw a Loomis head from any angle, we also want a method that we can draw the lips from any angle as well. So today we are learning to draw the lips from multiple angles. You will be successful if you can. Take a photo of your lips at any angle to work from. Use your pencil to sketch out the main structure of the lips. Add a light layer of tone to all areas in shadow. And then add darker shadows to the darkest areas to create a range of tone. Now again, that sounds very simple, but there are obviously a few different stages to this, so just make sure to listen as closely as possible. Now, where people often go wrong with the lips is they oversimplify them. You can see in these drawings that they're just kind of basic shapes and the tone hasn't really been considered. Now, these drawings don't work for a few different reasons, but part of it is because you can tell the person hasn't really thought about what the 3D structure of the lips is or any of the tone in the drawing. Now, before we start drawing, let's break down the actual parts of the lips. Lips are very expressive because there are many different muscles in your face that pull them in different directions, which allows you to express yourself and to speak. So let's look into the different parts of the lips. Now, just like what we did with the eye, we also want to think about what's around it. So we considered the socket first with the eye. And when thinking about the lips, one thing to consider is that it isn't on just a flat plane. The tooth cylinder, or the area between the nose and the chin, is a shape that curves out, almost like a can of tuna. And because it's a curved surface, depending on what angle you're looking at, it can change or distort the lips significantly. For example, one corner of the lips might slightly disappear, or they might appear wider in some parts. So when drawing, we want to avoid it looking like the lips are on a flat surface. The actual lips can be split into the upper and lower lip, and although they can vary a lot between different people, they can be broken down quite easily. The upper lip can be broken into 3 shapes, and the bottom can be split into 2. They're almost like squishy little pillows. The rounded form in the middle of the upper lip, or the middle pillow, is shaped like a heart and is wedged between the 2 shapes of the bottom lip. So just like the eye, we want to draw a little bit more than just these shapes. To get these to look as accurate as possible, we also want to include some of the area around where the lips sit. This will make it easier for you later when we have to draw the whole portrait, as it'll be easier to understand how the lips actually sit on the face. It also adds some key features of your lips, like this little part called the philtrum, as well as the little creases on the side called the nodes, and the major shadow underneath your lips. Now remember, when taking the photo, I would take it from a slight angle like this one, and if it helps you can also make it black and white. Also, to make it easier for you, you don't want to use a flash or have a light coming at you straight on. It's always better to have the light coming from a slight angle or from above so you get clearer shadows. So the next thing we're wanting to do is figure out the actual width of the lips from one corner to the other. Next, we want to add the center line, which will change depending on where the person is facing. Because this person is looking slightly to my left, my center line will move over to the left. Then we want to make a mark at the top of that heart-shaped area called the philtrum, as well as the bottom part of the bottom lip. Make sure to look closely at your lips and make sure you're getting this distance correct, depending on whether you have a larger top or bottom lip. And at this point I'll give my weekly reminder to make sure you're constantly studying your image to get all the shapes perfect. Remember, you should be looking at your image 80% of the time. We're drawing what we can see and not what we think we can see. So now you can see the lips are already starting to take form. So let's break the lips down into those squishy pillows we talked about before. Sketch these out lightly because we'll be drawing over it. So now we have the little heart-shaped pillow at the top, which has two pillowy shapes on either side. And then remember, the bottom lip can be split up into just two pillows. Now make sure you're making these shapes curve slightly at the edges because it's really important for making it clear that the lips are made up of these different forms. And now we have the basic shapes of the lips. Now when adding shadows, consider how your lips generally contain a lot of a wider range of tone than the rest of your skin, with darker shadows and sometimes shiny little highlights. So applying the tone is going to be especially important with the lips. Now depending on where the light source is hitting your lips, it's going to change the shadows quite a lot, because some parts of your lips are going to be in the light and some are going to be in the dark. To tell where the light source is coming from, you can always look at your key shadows. So underneath the lips, we can see the light is coming from above and just slightly to the right. And just like the eyes, we're going to start with one value of tone that's quite light to start. Remember that you want to build up your tone gradually, moving your pencil back and forth gently with multiple layers to get it nice and smooth. Remember that you're wanting to add this light layer of tone to any of the shadows that you can see around the lips. Also making sure to look at the corner of your lips and underneath it as well. Next, we can start to add a second layer of darker shadow. Now generally, the darkest parts of the lips are always going to be in the corners, along the crease, and just under the bottom lip. Now when putting in the darkest creases of the lips, make sure to consider the direction of the creases, because often these are going to follow along the different forms of the lips that we talked about earlier, and some of these overlapping creases can make it look really 3D. Now I can start looking at my image and adding in some smaller tonal details. At this stage, you already have a lot of your major shadows and you want to keep them darker, but there's a whole range of lighter tones that are in your lips. So take your time and continue to study your image. In this case, the skin around the lips is significantly lighter than the lips, so I'm only just now starting to go into some of the lighter shadows around them. And now my lips are starting to look like they're actually on a face. Remember to also keep your highlights bright. It's the contrast between the light and the dark parts that we really want to see. And lastly, if there are any, you can add in some small linear details that might be in the lips, like any small creases. But make sure to do these quite lightly. And now we have our finished lips. So that's us now one step closer to getting to our full portrait. So hopefully that made sense to all of you. Remember that drawing a portrait is extremely challenging, right? And it's going to take some time for it to get absolutely perfect. But if you make sure to give it all your concentration and just follow the process, then you are going to end up with a great result. And if there's anything you're really unsure of, just remember you can message or email me, or you can also pop into the weekly check-ins and I'll help as best as I can. After all the fantastic eyes that you guys submitted last week, I'm really excited to see how these turn out. So as always, I hope everyone's keeping safe at home and I'll see you next time.